So about 7 years ago, I crashed and burned. And now I look back, I can see it years before that, but obviously just wasn't paying attention. But 7 years ago, I was so exhausted that at first I thought it was normal because I had kids, I was working, I was trying to work out. I was a competitive athlete when I grew up. So I was still in the gym space, still trying to work out really hard, trying to be 20 when you're not. And I started noticing like after work, I would have to come home and I'd fall asleep on the couch. I would just nap in the middle of the day. And at first I thought that was okay, but then it definitely got to almost be every day. There was a point in workouts where I was starting to get dizzy and almost passing out that I couldn't tolerate a workout. And again, I'm a competitive athlete. Even though I'm a little bit older, there's just no reason for that kind of stuff. Wouldn't say I was depressed, but I definitely felt depressed. I didn't really want to do much. I didn't really want to go out and see people. I was starting to just not go out and do things. So finally, once I passed out and work out, I finally was like, all right, I should probably go see my doctor. And she ran a TSH, she ran an EKG, took my blood pressure and ran a little bit of blood work and pretty much told me I was fine. She's like, you're fine. And I'm like, I'm 45, passing out in workouts, crashing on the couch after work. I'm not fine. She's like, you have 2 young kids, a husband, a work, you're working 40 hours, you're working out. She's like, you need to stop working out, maybe lower your hours at work. And I was like, that's your answer. At that point, I was like, I'm not taking that as the answer. So that's when I was out searching to try and figure out what was wrong with myself.
I'm sorry, because I think you actually said this. I just want to make sure I have this correctly, and I'm mentioning it for a reason. Did you just say your doctor? You said she, so it was a woman doctor. Okay. The reason I asked that is because there's these crazy studies that I'm not saying this makes it okay at all or any better, but it's just something we have to work on. So there's these crazy studies that show doctors of both genders, so male and female, which is even crazier because you'd think it'd be maybe just sexist one way,
Right.
are more likely to tell women that their symptoms are because of these lifestyle or stress related things. So it's just amazing because my mom's doctor originally was a male and it was the same thing. So it's like he actually said to her, you're a woman business owner and that's why you're dealing with this stuff. She had Graves' disease, would have been able to be diagnosed at that
Right.
time and no one caught it. And then for you, it's yes, obviously that's not normal. You clearly know you had more stuff going on now. And then yet the same kind of thing happens. So on one end, I'm glad that they're recognizing to some degree that the stress of life can contribute to this. I just think they're not necessarily doing it in the right way. So did you believe that when that was first said to you? Because I know that you're not coming from this like advanced medical background by any means. It's like you're into health, but it's not like you're a doctor yourself. So
Right.
it's powerful when these people say this stuff to us. And that's why I'm not trying to poke fun at them. But the reason I go into this so deeply is because to me, these words matter. And I think they need to realize how much of an authority figure we all view them as. So when they say something, we take it literally.
Yeah.
So when they said that to you, did you just say, okay, I guess I'm fine? Or did you not take no for an answer pretty much from the get go?
For a little while, I was like, "Oh my god, it's all in my head. Like, I must be just losing my mind, and I guess maybe it is just life." But as it continued and got worse, I knew there was more answers. And so I started listening to podcasts and I was like listening to women's hormones. I knew I was getting to the age of perimenopause, so I knew that those were going to come into play. So I was trying to figure out myself. So I was just listening to podcast after podcast. And that's when I finally heard Reed on a podcast, Reed Davis, and I was just like, this is the coolest thing to be able to. He was just checking off boxes for me. Oh, are you tired? Yes. Are you not sleeping well? Oh my God, yes, I'm not sleeping at night. I'm waking up every 2 hours. Do you not digest well? I was bloated 24/7. All these check marks just kept checking off. And I was like, you know what? This is what I want to do. I want to actually look into something deeper. And I did see a functional doctor at one point because I was really desperate. And again, he ran a little bit of blood work and he was like, take these supplements and just stop working out. And I was like, okay, I'm a competitive athlete. Like, workout is my life. But like, I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the gym so that I can still make it through my day. And you're just telling me to just stop. So I think finding FDN and getting my labs done while I was in FDN was mind blowing and pretty much, I feel like, saved my life in a good portion of way.
Nice. I don't know if you've heard me ask something like this before, but I have to backtrack for a second because I feel like when people tell their stories, I don't think you realize how amazing some of the stuff is in terms of, okay, you get this thing by your doctor. So really you didn't go to the doctor until this, at least for these problems.
Right.
Then they tell you one thing and then pretty rapidly, it seems, after experiencing more and more of the same symptoms and realizing they're not resolving, you're already doing this alternative path. So the question I want to get into is, I do not understand how some people just open their minds to something alternative. Even something like podcast is not something that every single person
Right.
goes out and listens to, let alone go to a functional doctor. Did you have any influence in your life between that first doctor and then the first functional doctor that made you more open to natural medicine? Or like, why did you even assume that you should go to something like a functional doctor?
I've been so I'm a physical therapist by trade. So I
Mhm.
was obviously in health for my whole life. And I think I've always tried to self-treat myself no matter what because I just don't really like going to the doctor. So there was a point where I broke my ankle and I was like, you know what, I can fix it myself. I don't need
Oh,
to go to the
jeez.
doctor. So I've always been the person to search out. I have a bunch of sisters that I have four sisters, and one of them actually had been to a functional doctor. And that's how she was like, maybe you should just go out there and see them and see what's going on. And so that's when I actually saw that functional doctor. I wouldn't ever say that I was ever closed-minded to anything. Obviously, we were very born Western medicine. I've never been opposed to. I've heard about supplements, and my mother had brought us to a chiropractor for most of our lives when we were younger. Having that natural chiropractor aspect gives you a little bit of functional health because you're trying to fix yourself without drugs and things like that. Over my multiple broken bones and sprained bodies through gymnastics, the chiropractor, pretty much put me back together. So again, always in my life a little bit. Did I ever think that this is where I would be? No. In the process of finally feeling really crappy, I had actually said to myself, I wish I could go back to school and redo myself and come back as a functional doctor. And just because at that point I had started to listen to those podcasts and okay, maybe I do need a couple of supplements. Maybe my gut is off and maybe my hormones are going crazy. So I've been in the functional space a little bit, never like this.
Sure. And I would say functional medicine, like even natural, I'll say natural and Western medicine are this spectrum, right? Because you could have two extreme on either end. That happens all
Correct.
the time. I would already say that people that get into physical therapy, at least from what I've seen, are more in the center. I think I've had at least two instances with various things that I've injured where physical therapists were like adamant that, hey, if you want to, you can try this first before you go and get that surgery. And I was able to avoid both of those surgeries. There are already people that I feel like are open to, hey, the body's very powerful if you put in
Right.
some work, because it is always more work doing the more natural approach, but I think it's worth it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for humoring me on that because I'm fascinated. Like, why can everyone not see this instantly? And if I could figure out a pattern, then hopefully we can influence more people to just be more open minded to it.
Yeah.
So you get into FDN. One of the things that we include in the cost of tuition is now it's all of the lab tests, which is amazing. It's like officially all of them, even the food sensitivity test. When
Mhm.
you went through, I'm guessing you would have gotten four of the lab tests probably and the metabolic typing.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
so for all intents and purposes, basically all of them. So, what were some of the things that you discovered on those functional labs that maybe your functional doctor even had not looked at, let alone the Western doctor?
Yeah, and I will say when I got my labs back, I burst into tears because she had me thinking it was in my head. She told me nothing was wrong yet. I was feeling like complete crap and really not functioning very well at all. So whenever I got the labs back and she was like, this is why you're not feeling great. I was like, the validation was amazing.
Hmm.
So my food sensitivities was, I think, one of my more eye-opening ones because the things that I triggered for were things that I was eating every day, but I'm a healthy eater. Like I ate a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits, clean meats, things like that. And my triggers were like apples, strawberry, spinach, pork, dairy, which I knew anyways, and like all the things that were just like healthy. Like why would I think that eating spinach and almonds was going to send me over the edge? So I think the food sensitivities was very eye-opening. I ended up having a parasite, which I had no idea. My gut was a disaster. I had low good bacteria, so I had like really no stomach support. I did trigger for antigliadin, so I knew gluten was going to come out of my diet. My liver was just over toxin burdened, the stress. And it was funny because I knew I didn't feel well, but then again, you have to start now picking apart your life and figuring out, okay, why don't I feel once I saw the labs? But yeah, my digestion was poor, which explained exactly why I was having a lot of bloating because I wasn't digesting well. So the labs for me was the validation that I needed to be like, okay, I knew it wasn't in my head. I know my body extremely well from being a gymnast, being in PT and everything. So I knew that there was something wrong, but for some reason, someone telling me that there's nothing wrong with you was I just wasn't going to let that stand for the rest of my life. I was 45. I wasn't living like this for the rest of my life. So
Yeah.
labs, super validating. And I will say with my clients, super validating.
So when you say, just to be clear to someone who's maybe never ran things like this, the bursting into tears, I wouldn't think it's fair to say that it's, oh, complete happiness, but you're not saying that it's bursting into tears from sadness. It's almost just like
No.
a relief, like a finally I know what's going on.
Completely. She was just, and the advisor that went through them with me, because I told her, she said, they told me it was all in my head. And she's a sweetheart. She's, nope, take a look at this. And it was just so nice to be able to see something on paper that showed exactly why. It wasn't even like she was guessing, right? It was legit facts on a piece of paper that was like, this is why you don't feel well. And I think it was just, I'd held it in for so long that once I saw it and I was like, okay, then there is a reason. And there, it's fixable too, right? That was that whole relief of, okay, I can do something to fix it. And this doesn't mean that this is my downfall for the rest of my
Sure.
life at 45 years old.
So, what did you have to change then in your life to get yourself to a better place? And the reason I'm saying it like that is because you're one of those people, which happens probably maybe 10, 15% of the time on our podcast, that you were already, I would argue, living better, at least thinking that you're living better than most people out there, certainly most
Right.
Americans, right? Just the fact that you're taking your physical fitness so seriously. Most of the physical therapists that I know are some of just like the happiest, fittest people that I know. One of my best friends is a doctor of physical therapy. He lives like 10 minutes down the road. What did you have to change? Because I imagine for you, it was almost probably a paradigm shift. Because again, you already thought that you were doing well in a lot of ways. So sometimes those changes for the people that believe that they were already doing well, that can be even tougher in a sense. So I'm just wondering, what were the biggest changes that helped you?
Yeah, the hardest one for me was, so my adrenals, I was not producing like any cortisol. I was in the exhaustive phase, and I know you know, but some don't know, but there's a skull and crossbones at the bottom of that map.
That's
That's
Reed,
where
baby.
I was. I was at the skull and crossbones of exhausted body phase. And I knew that I had to take off exercise for a little bit. I didn't realize how drastically I had to. I pretty much had to stop everything. So I took months off of the gym, stopped my membership for a little while, and I pretty much just walked. That's all I could handle.